Here's another thing I'm interested in. Last time you were talking about truth bearer, truth maker. Remember that? But the way that you framed it uh, did not include a God. And I've heard also Jake talk about that quite a bit as well. And he has like a different framework. So I was wondering if you could kind of give us your idea again. I'd like to hear it again, actually, in a sense of that aspect, because I don't even think it was like mind related, as I recall. Whereas Jake has that idea of concepts and requiring a mind and things like that.
I,
Um, talking to me, I was just basically running Anderson's argument. Um, although there's similar arguments in Islamic literature, but for contemporary understanding, something similar to Anderson's argument.
I don't know if you're familiar with Anderson's argument, Floyd, but what you presented was something definitely different, and I was just wondering uh, how either um, view on. I mean, it doesn't seem like a consensus of what truth maker uh, and truth bearer represents. That's why I asked.
I read some, it's James Anderson, right? I read some of this stuff, um, not a whole lot, but I don't recall reading anything about what he says about truth maker theory as a theory of truth. I know presuppositionalists. You'll hear from Van Til and Bonson will claim that all facts come from God. Um, and you'll hear like Sci-10 and so forth say, truth is what corresponds to God's mind. And they take it from the Gospel of John that Jesus is the truth and so forth, which is category error. Um, but it says the, what 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 these apologists try to do is they try to make God necessary for truth. They want to bind truth to God and make God necessary for truth.
Isn't that how you kind of argue that, Jake? That there's some sort of necessary mind uh, for truth.
Yeah, that's right.
So you're saying, Floyd, basically that mind is not necessary. Is that also correct?
For truth,
Yeah.
no, a mind would be necessary for truth because what's true are propositions, right? And propositions only abide within a mind. But that doesn't mean um, objective facts require a mind. They don't. But again, if you follow correspondence theory of truth, those propositions correspond with those objective facts. But those objective facts are independent of the mind. So the, those objective facts, they are the truth makers. What the truth bearers are the propositions that represent those facts. But God, no, God can create truth, um, but it's not needed. Just some state of affairs are the truth makers.
Yeah, that's kind of how I heard it last time. So I mean, do you have any objections to what he said, Jake?
Um, to which part? Sorry. I'm just at work, so I'm not really fully paying attention.
Because he was saying something like the propositions are the truth bearers, and the facts are the truth makers. Is that what he said?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
What?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, you don't have a problem with that. And how does, because I thought I heard you say, Jake, something like God is the truth bearer.
Um, no, in the sense that God would ground those propositions. That's basically the idea.
And you're saying, Floyd, that God does not need to ground the propositions. I'm assuming, right?
Well, I mean, if God exists, right, all all contingent facts from Him, right? Um, he's a necessary being, and everything that comes from is contingent upon Him. You
So
know,
the question is, if God did not exist, what grounds the propositions?
just 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 states of affairs, just objective reality, which would be, a godless reality.
So you're saying that somehow like reality grounds the propositions?
Okay,
Yes.
what do you mean by ground here?
Ontologically, yeah. Because I mean, what are the propositions about? They're about reality, right? The propositions are
Yeah,
are
but the
are, are
propositions
corresponding
themselves, Floyd,
to the reality they represent,
the propositions
Hey, Doc.
themselves,
regardless if there's a God or not.
you would say they were ground in a human mind, right?
Doc, you got background noise. Can you mute, please?
The propositions require a mind. I don't think propositions are floating around in the ether somewhere, or some
Yeah, so
atomic form.
you would be like a human conceptualist, right?
Yeah, yeah. If there are no minds, there would be no truth. But that doesn't mean that there are no facts, no objective facts.
Yeah, but then in that
There'd be no
case, when
there'd be no
there's no
there'd be no
humans,
truth.
there's no truth, right?
Well, I don't think you need to be human centric. I think I think some animals can have knowledge, have truth.
Okay, so prior
My
to any,
cat, my cat knows where the kitty litter box is.
yeah, I'm saying prior to any minds existing, would there be truth?
No.
So do you think that there's an eternal mind, or that minds always existed, or did they have a beginning?
Um, I mean, if just following our knowledge, I think there are dispositional states in which minds came about. But do I think there was a mind always existed? Probably not. No.
Okay, so then,
I think they evolved, uh, over time.
Emerge?
Wait, can
well,
Yeah.
hold
can I?
on a second. Hold on a second, sir. So then, on your view, Floyd, truth would begin to exist whenever the first mind or set of minds came into existence, correct?
Yes.
So, how do you deal with things like necessary truths, like laws of logic or things of that sort? How do you deal with necessary truths not always being true?
Well, let's think of an example like the law of identity, right? A law of identity is descriptive of the facts, the fact of identity, that there are identities existing within reality. And the law of identity is simply just a description of that fact. So before minds existed, there were still things that had identities, right? And you can say the same thing for mathematical truths as well. You know, there's one rock plus another rock, so that would make two rocks, but there are no minds to, apprehend that.
Yeah, so you have a fact, but in other words, you have a fact, but you don't have truth because you don't have a mind that has that proposition, correct?
Right. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm saying, on your view, then you don't, the laws of logic are not eternally true.
Yes, they are.
How, if there's no mind? If you said that the proposition is what's true, and in order to have that proposition has to be grounded in the mind, there's no mind to ground it. I thought you already agreed there wouldn't be a truth of the matter.
Right. So what you're asking me is the proposition like like the law of identity necessarily true?
Yeah, is it
That prop
necessarily
that,
true?
that right that proposition right exists now in my mind and in your mind. So you're asking me if that proposition, which is presently in our mind, true uh, in all possible worlds, and my answer to that is yes.
Well, but you already said that there is no eternal mind, so it's not eternally true, right?
Not eternally true. Yes, it is eternally true.
But you said that truth is propositional and is ground by mind. So if you don't have a mind to ground that proposition, how do you have truth in that case? I thought you already agreed that
I,
you
I,
wouldn't
I,
have
I,
truth.
I
Jake, I
think you're
think the
saying
question is, what about, like, are there possible worlds without minds?
Well,
I
no,
think I
he's
think
already
what
agreed. He's already agreed that the actual world, right, didn't have minds.
Well, that seems like a
I think I
contradiction.
think
Well, that's
yeah,
what
I
I'm
think what
trying
you're
to point
saying
out.
is I think what you're saying is does that proposition exist eternally? And my answer to that would be no.
Yeah, and your answer to that is
But but
no.
but
And
that, but does but does
if
that
that,
proposition um, represent a eternal fact, an eternal fact, or a fact that is eternal? And my answer to that would be yes. See the difference?
no, I'm saying if you're defining truth, which is the truth bearer, which is the proposition, and
Right.
you've committed to propositions necessarily being grounded in minds, and minds aren't eternal, and it's just going to follow that truth in the way that you've expressed it isn't eternal and isn't necessary.
Right. Yeah. Truth is not necessary.
Can I add
Yeah, but
something to
that's not
the
what you were
conversation?
saying at the beginning, though, Floyd.
I think the word
Well, you asked me if the proposition is true. The fact of identity is not true. Again, the law of identity describes the fact of identity. The fact of identity would be eternal, but the fact of identity is not true. The law of identity is true. See the difference?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm saying the law of
Facts have no
identity.
truth value.
Yeah, I
Propositions
agree.
do.
Yeah, I agree. So, but what you're saying is the law of identity is not necessarily true.
It is necessarily true.
I mean, I think I've gone through the argument like three times. I mean, I'm not I'm not trying to press you, Floyd. So I'm not going to
can
keep
I mean,
repeating them.
I think I can understand what you're saying. You somehow think that that proposition somehow has to exist eternally, and that's what I
No,
deny.
in order for it to be true, on your own view, forget about my view. On your own view, in order for it to be true, it must exist as a proposition in the mind. And so if you don't have that, then it's not true. That's just what your view is.
Well, it's not true. Well, it's not false either. If there are no minds, there is no truth at all. There's no
Hey, that's exactly
proposition
what I'm saying. That's all
to
I'm saying.
consider.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
right.
exactly what I'm saying. So then it wouldn't be eternally and necessarily true on your view. That's just the entailment of everything you've said.
I think you're confusing the proposition with its content.
yes, good point, Floyd. I think what's happening here is the truth is being not understood unilaterally, like everybody's understanding it. The proposition is a mental concept. So without brains, without minds, there is no concept of the truth. However, things that are true existed prior to minds. And when I say things that are true, meaning the state of affairs, like let's use the earth, for example. The earth existed prior to our minds. So it's true the earth existed prior to brain/minds.
I don't think that's what Floyd is saying, James.
No, no,
Yeah,
no, no, no.
yeah.
That's
Actually, I think that's a good
exactly
example.
that's exactly what Floyd is saying.
Yeah,
He
that's a
just
great
But the
wants to say it's
example.
point
true.
is, you're talking about the truth makers. On Floyd's view, you have the truth makers and the truth bearers. The truth bearers are the propositions which are necessarily mental or grounded in minds. Therefore, if you don't have a mind, you can't have truth. You can have, as Floyd said, you can have facts or states of affairs, but you cannot have truth because you don't have a mind to ground the proposition, which is what is the truth bearer.
Right.
I think there's a problem here. What the thing is that what necessary simply means, I mean, it's going to be different in different modalities. But for example, let's take logical necessity. What it simply means is that the truth of certain proposition is entailed by the logical axioms that one um, may accept in his formal system, right? So if there is a logically necessary truth, what it just simply means is that it follows from the axioms one accepts in his logical system. However, it does not mean that the proposition itself is now going to be eternal or something.
Yeah. Yeah. To say something's logically necessary is to say its negation entails some sort of contradiction. But the idea
Yeah,
that
but you're saying it's contingently true because you're saying that there's a possible state of affairs, but it's not true. In other words,
it's
it
not
doesn't
false
have a,
either,
yeah,
right?
it's not true or false. It doesn't have a truth value because it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. There's nothing to evaluate about it.
Yeah,
It's
that's
there's
the
no
point.
minds.
That's the point
There is
I'm
no
That
making.
meaning. There is
that
no
just means it's
evaluation.
not
Yeah,
necessary,
it just
right?
means it's not
No,
necessary.
no,
That's what
no.
I'm trying to tell you. You're
Just
saying you're saying that there's a state of affairs in which it doesn't exist. You're saying it's contingently the case because you've already agreed that minds didn't exist and there's a state of affairs in which minds don't exist, right? So it
Right.
doesn't have a truth value.
So, well, that proposition does have a truth value, right?
Not when it doesn't exist.
Well, there's no proposition at that time, right? But we're talking about the proposition now, right? Like,
Okay.
I think it was James. James had a good example that the Earth existed before any minds uh, existed, right? So, so is the proposition that the Earth existed before minds somehow not true? Well, of course it's true, but that proposition is being evaluated right now. That proposition didn't exist when no minds existed. Like if you ask me, well, does that mean that proposition isn't true? No, no, because the proposition is what the proposition we're talking about right now.
yeah, like we have a formal.
Yeah, it's contingently true.
No,
Look,
well,
we have formal
no.
systems. If one accepts, let's say, a system with certain actions, the proposition is going to be necessary. Let's say, it's going to be entailed. The truth value of the certain proposition is going to be entailed from the actions, right? So at the moment, we can say that this is a necessary truth, but it's entailed by the actions that we uh, um, of this logical system, right? But it does not mean, again, that does not mean that the truth, or I mean, the proposition itself is going to eternally exist.
What
because
does necessary
think of
mean
like
then?
an a priori truth, like like no bachelor is married, right? Now that would be true regardless if there are any bachelors at all, right? Or it sounds like you're saying, well, there has to be bachelors have to exist eternally for that statement to be true. I'm saying no.
Yeah, upon you're saying something entirely different than what Floyd is saying.
Maybe, I'm not sure.
Yeah, bachelors
Because
don't have to exist
he's saying
for
that it would still,
for it to be true.
in one sense, he's saying it would still be true, but then in other times in the conversation, he's saying it wouldn't be true.
Well, no. Oh, I think you're equivocating when you say not true. It sounds like it's kind of saying, oh, then in some cases it would be false, right?
No, I didn't
That's
say
not what
that.
you mean.
No, we're not saying the opposite is true then. We're saying that necessary means it's always true. And then you're kind of saying there are times because the proposition doesn't exist, it's not true because the proposition won't exist for it to be true.
Mind. Remember, a mind does not make the proposition true, right?
Yeah, State of
You're
affairs
talking about
says.
propositions being grounded in a mind.
Yeah,
The
that's what you
truth,
said.
the truth value of the proposition is not grounded in the mind.
How does the proposition have a truth value if it doesn't exist?
It wouldn't.
Correct. So it wouldn't be true because there wouldn't be a thing. No, in this
But when you
case, the
say it wouldn't,
proposition, it
when you
wouldn't
say
be
it wouldn't
true.
be
It doesn't
true,
have a. There is no truth in that case. That's what I
when you
mean.
say
That doesn't
yeah,
mean
when you
it's
say
false.
it,
It means it's not.
yeah,
It's not always true because it
when you
doesn't.
say
It's
it
not.
wouldn't
There's
be
no
true,
mind.
once you say it wouldn't be true, that that presupposes that it actually exists.
No, it doesn't. I'm just
Truth
referring
value.
to it in the context of. Just referring to it in the context of this conversation, and saying that you know what I mean by it, and it wouldn't exist at that time. And so there wouldn't be a proposition in that case, which was true. There'd be no
There
true
would
propositions.
there would be no truth of the matter.
There would be no true propositions. So there would be no truth because that's what your understanding of truth is you're identifying it with the proposition. So there would be no truth.
Right,
Correct. And that's all I'm saying. So your view would lead to the idea that there hasn't always been truth.
right.
Well, it seems an easy fix if there's always a mind.
Well, then he wants to say that there
What
are necessary truths, and that's a contradiction.
what needs to be fixed?
Well, you'd have to either dispense of necessary truths or accept that propositions aren't grounded in minds, or you'd have to say that there's a third one. I
Grounded.
can't think of it.
You can be a Platonist. You can reject several other steps that you've. I mean, because you accepted them on your own, like truth maker theory. You can have a deflationary notion of truth rather than um, other notions. So, I
Mhm.
mean, you can do a number of things, but given what you said, right? That's
Yeah, I'm a
just the
nominalist,
entailment. Yeah,
so
that's just the entailments of your view. That's all.
Why is that a problem?
yeah, I don't see it as a
A
problem.
contradiction?
Yeah,
No, that
his
truth hasn't always existed.
Well, that's not the problem. The problem is there's a contradiction because he wants to say that there are necessary truths and there aren't necessary truths.
Oh, okay. That is a problem.
I
No,
can hear him
a
say that.
necessary truth doesn't mean that this the proposition exists eternally. A necessary truth simply means that the negation of it results in some contradiction. That's what logically necessary means. It has nothing to do with eternal, the eternal
Yeah,
value of it.
I agree that it doesn't have to be eternal. I'm saying that, like, There's going to be no possible world where it is not true, right?
Right.
Right. And then there's going to be worlds without minds, correct?
Right.
So there are worlds
Yeah,
without
so there's possible
propositions.
worlds when it's not true.
Well, there's possible worlds where there is no propositions.
Right. And so those aren't necessary in that world, right?
Yeah, because to be necessary means it's existing in all possible worlds. You're saying it's not.
Yeah, but that
Exist in all
defers to
possible. No.
a human
No,
proposition.
no,
No.
What
necessary
is a
means
human
the
proposition?
truth value. The proposition doesn't have to exist, but it would have a truth value if it were there.
Yeah, but isn't that truth value based on an observation?
Not for a priori propositions like bachelors.
No.
Bachelors
Yeah.
is a priori.
So you can have truths without observing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true everywhere in all possible worlds about bachelors being unmarried men, regardless of whether there are any minds
Are
in a
you referring
possible world.
worlds or
That's
points?
not Floyd's view though. So
Yeah.
Brenda, you're
I think
representing
it
your own
is.
view.
Yeah.
No.
No,
I
that's
think it
not
I
might
agree.
be.
Floyd's
I
view.
agree with what Brenda said right there. Yeah.
If you yeah, and that's the problem because you agree with that. That's what the contradiction is.
I still don't see the contradiction.
You're saying? I thought I
Contradiction
just
is you're
laid it out.
saying that truth is needed in order. I mean, a mind is needed in order for there to be truth. And then what Brenda just said is that no, you can have truth without a mind. That's a contradiction.
Yeah, that's right.
I
Because you're
didn't
saying
say that.
propositions are like dependent on minds,
You
and you
wouldn't
said
have
truth
truth
is a
bearers.
property of propositions. Brenda's saying there's truth irrespective of like the mind.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah,
agree with
Floyd.
that.
I'm just saying you. I was trying to bring out the entailments of your view, but you have contradicted yourself several times. I don't mean that in a
I
rude way.
I
no.
think if you wrote it
Again,
out, I think if you
what is the
wrote it out, you'd
contradiction?
find it isn't.
What is the contradiction?
I'll try to go through it one more time. You agree that there are necessary truths, right? That's part of it. Then the entailment of some of the other things you said was prop, propositions are reliant on minds. Truth is a property of a proposition. There are possible worlds without minds. That means there are possible worlds without propositions. So in those worlds, there aren't any necessary truths because there aren't propositions. So you're affirming there are possible worlds without necessary truths. And you also want to say that there are propositions that are necessarily true.
In those possible worlds, there is no there are no truth bearers. That doesn't mean there's no truth. There are no truths about that possible.
Well,
See the
what
No,
else
difference?
would
that's
be
just saying
true
that's
then?
yeah, but Floyd, that's just saying Floyd, you're just saying there's facts, but on your view, those facts, which are the truth makers, are not the propositions, which are the truth bearers. So on that,
Right.
you're just saying there's facts, but there's not truth, and that's what we're saying. You wouldn't have
Right.
truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Again, where's the contradiction?
The contradiction is when Brenda said, and which you agreed with, and that happened several times before, that you said that there could be truth without a mind, and that you
Well,
also are saying
Yeah.
that truth
I said that I
exists.
misspoke because I think I said at the very beginning that propositions require a mind. So if there's no mind, there's no propositions, and therefore there are no truth bearers. So there's no truth.
Yeah,
Is
but then you
propositions the
also
only
are
thing
saying
that can be true?
yeah, but he said that already because otherwise he's just equivocating on truth given what he's already said about his own theory. And I'm saying that if truth, given what you just said, doesn't exist in every possible world, then it's not necessary.
But all right, so the truth is that gravity exists, correct?
I just
Yeah.
want
And Doc,
Floyd.
No, I'm asking.
we
No,
I just
gotta
want
like
I'm
Floyd to
not.
see if he
Good for you. Good for
understands.
you.
you're
Good
gonna
for you.
make
Good
it
for you.
messy.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah.
Well,
We
the
just want
point
to.
is that you're wrong.
Yeah. You're
Doc,
equivocating there. You're
hey,
equivocating.
Doc, just calm
No,
down, buddy.
if you have gravity as a truth, but before the gravity was even proposed as a truth, it was still a true thing. You're saying
Doc.
gravity
Okay, how
didn't
about this,
exist
Doc?
as a
Hold
truth
on, hold on,
before we
hold on.
proposed that it was a
Let
truth.
let me let me
Doctor,
make this
having a
simple, Doc.
discussion.
Doc, can you
They're
explain
having
to
a
me?
discussion. Let them do it.
Yeah, Doc, can you explain to me the difference between a truth maker and a truth
No,
bearer?
Jake, don't engage him. He's going to derail the
No,
Yeah,
because
it'll
conversation. Let
I'm
him
the
derail.
have.
I
point. The
agree
point.
with you, Jake.
No,
Just
no, but yeah, but my point
He's
is
trying
by
to
asking
distract
the
you and
question.
derail what you're already
I
doing.
get that, but by asking the question, I'm showing he's not equipped to follow along with the conversation and know what's going
I
on.
agree.
That's with all due respect.
I think we just tell him that
I
though.
was actually going to ask. I was going to ask Floyd if he thinks that truth makers are mind dependent.
You're doing it too, Jovan. Let him talk.
Yes.
Floyd,
The
do,
truth
do you
maker.
remember what I said before we got interrupted, or should I repeat it again?
I think I remember. Let me try to steel man your position. You said in some possible worlds there would be no minds, so therefore there would be no uh, propositions within that world because there's no minds to to hold the proposition. So therefore, in those possible worlds, there are no truths, but a necessary truth is true in all possible worlds. That's what your
Correct,
position
Yes,
and
is.
that's right.
therefore,
Yeah,
correct,
that's
and
right.
therefore, you couldn't have necessary truths on your view.
No, that's false. That doesn't follow.
You just still
It
manned it.
it it actually does.
Well, there's
No,
a contradiction.
those
You could
truths
cash
those
out the
truths do
distinction.
not abide within those possible worlds, but those necessary truths still represent the actual state of affairs within those possible worlds. See the difference?
They can't represent them if they don't exist. How could they represent them in a world in which they don't exist? And if a necessary
They're,
truth is one that exists in every possible world,
they're
and
not
you don't
represented in
have
those
those,
worlds.
if exactly, and if they means that they don't exist in every possible world, then you don't have a necessary truth. You don't have a single necessary truth because you don't have one existing in every possible world.
No, I think again, I think you're equivocating between uh, the representation, which is the proposition, and the facts of what they correspond to.
No, I
No,
think what
we
you're
agree
doing
that
is, I think what you're doing
the
is
state of affairs is going to be
you're
correct.
equivocating on the word truth because of the fact that you're running into a problem. Now you're equivocating on the word truth to refer to the states of
No,
affairs
no,
or the
no,
facts, which
no,
we already
no.
agreed that's not what the word truth means for you. The truth
Right,
refers to the proposition, the truth bearer, not the truth
right.
maker. So
I've been
you're the one that's
consistent.
equivocating due to the conundrum.
No, no. I've been consistent that I follow the correspondence theory of truth. That there's a
Um,
relationship between the proposition and the state of affairs in which it corresponds to.
Yeah, and a tree that
um,
falls in the woods. If
Right, and
nobody's
there's
there, does
no
anybody hear
and
it?
there's no and there's no proposition. I mean, we're just kind of spinning wheels here. I don't think
well,
Floyd,
I
I
can
think you
try
see
Okay.
the
something different.
problem, and
Well,
that's
let me see if so you I gave you kind of like the list of propositions where they are entailed. Which part of what I laid out do you deny? That I think that would be like a lot more clear to me and Jake to like remove the contradiction.
I think his only response is to equivocate on truth after we've already established the meaning and just refer to the state of affairs.
Well, I mean
I mean, that's just
that's fine. I mean if he wants to like restate that, like
but then that's an
well, I
entirely
mean
different theory. So the whole
yeah,
theory is different.
No,
yeah.
no. I think the mistake you're making. I don't say I'm equivocating at all. I think the mistake you're making is there has to be minds within these possible worlds for the truth of the objective facts in that possible world to be the case, and that
No,
No,
we're
doesn't
not
no, no,
follow.
saying that
no,
the
no, no,
fact
no.
that there's a mind needed for the facts. We're saying there's a mind needed for the truth because the truth is the truth bearer, which is the proposition, which is necessarily grounded in the mind. That's your own claim.
Minds don't make propositions true.
Right.
We agree.
The truth makers do.
State of affairs too, under his view.
Right.
The state of
We're
affairs.
not
The
That
state of
has
we're,
affairs
nothing
is
to
what
do
makes it
with
true.
it.
we're
The truth maker is not what's being
That's his
disputed.
theory.
the truth maker
That's
is
his
the
theory.
same in both cases. We're not disputing the truth makers.
Okay, so
Right.
imagine three trees in a meadow, and in this possible world, there are no minds. Is it true that there are 3 trees in a meadow?
Under his view, no.
Under his view, when there's no
No, then you
minds,
No,
don't
it's not
understand.
true.
no, that's correct. That's not correct.
Wait, how could it be
Okay,
true?
then you're
Well,
contradicting yourself.
No, I'm
How
not.
can it be
Yes,
true?
because
Listen to
What?
Brenda's question again. Brenda, repeat your question.
If there are 3 trees in a meadow, in a possible world without any conscious minds whatsoever, it is still true that the proposition there are 3 trees in a meadow is true.
No.
no,
Right.
that's false under Floyd's
Yeah,
view.
because there are.
No,
Has
no,
to
no,
be,
no,
Nope.
no,
otherwise,
no.
And I'll tell you
otherwise he's
why.
contradicting himself.
He
No.
thinks that
What
Yes, he
minds.
the
is.
proposition that Brenda just uttered is true.
How is it true?
Floyd, honestly, this is not looking good right now, buddy.
No.
You're totally contradicting yourself.
No, I'm not. I'm not contradicting myself at all.
Are
You
propositions
are,
dependent
because you
on
said that
minds?
truth is
Who
exactly. You can't have you Floyd.
Muslim
You already
Muslim
agreed that you can't have truth without
Muslim
a
who
mind.
uttered that proposition?
Well, then you're just
What?
saying
Who
it's
uttered
true
that
of the
proposition?
world, not in the world.
Right.
Okay, is that all you're
That
trying to
proposition doesn't
say?
have to exist within the possible world. Again, who uttered that proposition? Brenda did, right? And Brenda's
Yeah,
a
but we're talking
mind,
about a
right?
hypothetical. We're talking about a hypothetical and where there is no mind
So look, I want to
to utter the
make it clear here.
proposition.
Right.
We're
So
talking
that
about
proposition,
in the world, not of the world. Like if the proposition
yeah.
just like
So
washed
again,
up
on that.
on the beach.
So again, why is it necessary that proposition has to be within a possible world? I'm saying it doesn't. That's why I'm not
So
contradicting
truth
myself.
is not dependent upon the proposition. Then
The
is that
truth
your
value
view?
is the content of the proposition.
Is the truth, which is the truth bearer in your case, is it dependent upon a mind?
The proposition, yes,
Correct. And that's what you're referring to
but not the
truth
truth
as, correct?
value of the proposition.
Wait,
Not the truth
Floyd,
value of the
may I?
proposition.
We aren't
The truth
disputing
value,
the
the
truth
truth value of the
maker.
proposition is not dependent on the mind. It's dependent on the truth maker, like Brenda pointed
We
out.
aren't
Wait,
disputing the truth maker part.
may I ask him a question? Maybe it might help clear things up. Right. So, do you think, Floyd? Do you think that truth is merely a property of propositions, or do you think that truth actually refers to like an extra linguistic property of like being in accord with reality?
Well, I mean, I guess there can be non-propositional truths, right?
But so, did you really say earlier that truth is merely a property of propositions? Because it sounds like that's what's that it sounds like that's what Albedo and Muslim are saying, that you said
Well,
that earlier.
beliefs, propositions, statements, and so forth, they're all truth bearers.
Okay, but that's
I thought I wanted to ask before if there are any other things that are truth bearers. So now you're saying it's beliefs
Yeah,
and
but Albedo, he said before, he literally said that propositions and truth cannot exist without a mind. We went through that when we said that if no minds existed, would truth exist? And he said no. I mean, it's very clear.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
there's
think I
no
heard that too, but
contradiction. There's no contradiction between that and my example of the trees in a meadow.
Brenda, with
There's
all
no,
due
what's
and
the P and
that's
no
respect, I
P?
don't think you were here earlier, so maybe you didn't hear
What,
everything Floyd
what's the
had to
P and
say.
not? Yeah, what's the P and not P?
there are
Okay,
necessary
I just
truths and
gave
there are
it to
not
you.
necessary
Truth,
truths.
truth existing without a mind, and then truth can exist without a mind.
Okay, I never said that.
No,
That's not my problem. That's not,
yeah,
Yeah,
I've
that's
never
what
said
this
No
is
that
what
either.
that's
shit,
what Floyd said.
Brenda. This isn't your
no.
No,
conversation.
yeah, I think Brenda and I are
Yeah,
on the same page here.
I don't know. You get there's albino and Muslim, so uh, poor little Floyd. It's
I'm
okay
not
if
trying.
somebody
Look,
I'm
I'm
doing
not. I
okay.
don't even care if Floyd like has a contradiction. To be honest, with you, he could just affirm dialetheism for all I give a shit. I'm just showing that so far from what he said, if he cares about there being a contradiction, there seems to be one.
And
It doesn't
I'm totally
seem to be
seeing
there. There is one.
whenever you bring up a proposition, that proposition exists within your mind. And then if you ask me if it's true or not, it would be the case.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And you affirm that there are necessary propositions, correct?
And that would be the case in all possible worlds, right?
Okay. Are there
Yeah.
possible worlds without minds?
Yes.
Okay. And are those necessary truths still true?
Yes.
How, if there aren't minds?
Because the proposition there are three trees in the meadow is about. It's about those three trees. It's
Right.
Yeah, and that
about them.
proposition doesn't exist in a world in which there are no minds. That's the point.
right. But it exists within your mind right now.
But
So
they
you're
don't.
asking, is that
But I don't
proposition
exist
true?
in that world in which there are no minds, Floyd. That would be
Right.
contradictory.
Right. Well, we're not in that possible world. We're in this world.
We're saying in that possible world, truth wouldn't exist.
There are no propositions to hold that truth
Right.
Correct. So there would be no truth.
in that possible world.
That's what we're
Correct.
saying.
Which means there is no necessary truth on your view, because there is no truth that is true in all possible worlds. Simple.
It would still be the case in that possible world.
Yeah, it
There
would
might
still
be
be a
There'd be
there might
fact.
be
no
states of
There would
propositions to
affairs,
be
yes.
there would be a
There'd be just no
fact of the
propositions to
matter, but there would
represent it
be
in that possible world.
Floyd. There
That's
would be a
all.
fact of the matter, but there would be no truth.
Right.
Okay, great. We're not
Okay,
disputing that.
so then when I make the concluding statement that means there are no necessary truths on your view, why don't you just say yes?
No, again, the proposition represents the state of affairs within all possible worlds. That's what we're talking about here.
The proposition doesn't exist
Wow,
in
That's
that's
all
a
what we're talking
possible
contradictory.
about.
worlds, man. That's the point. You're
Yeah, that
saying
was
that the
contradictory. That was contradictory.
proposition is what is true, and that's dependent upon a mind. In a world in which there are no minds, there are no propositions, therefore there is no truth. And in a world, if there is no truth, that means that no truth is necessary on your view.
There are
Because
no truth bearers that represent the.
in order for it to be the case that you have a necessary truth, it has to be in all possible worlds. And that's not the case on your view.
The proposition doesn't have
Why
to
couldn't you why
abide in
couldn't you have
minds in
a
all
view
possible
where it's
worlds for it
true?
to be the case.
Right, but why couldn't you have a view where it's true at all possible worlds and still call that a necessary truth? I don't understand that.
He could say it's true of all possible worlds, but it seems to be the question is in possible worlds. And I think there's going to be a distinction there.
Yeah, it's not true in possible worlds, but you just say when you quantify over those worlds, you're quantifying at those worlds rather than in those
I
worlds.
agree. I
Right.
specifically asked that, though, and he said in that world.
Yeah, he
No.
denied that.
Yeah.
So do you see the issue there, Josh?
I don't know. Are you quantifying over worlds rather than in worlds, Floyd?
I'm saying there's no minds within those possible worlds that would hold those propositions because a proposition requires a mind to hold it. But doesn't mean that the proposition is not the case about that world.
From our fixed world, right?
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's
can you
not
repeat
in the
that?
world.
Right. There's no propositions in that world. You still agree with that?
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Is this just some conceptualist view about propositions or something?
Yeah.
No, Floyd explained his view of truth. And then we just went down the route of explaining what the entailments are.
Oh, he just sounds like he's
So
a
yeah, I mean,
conceptualist about propositions.
Yeah, Floyd is.
Yeah, that's what he's affirming, but it seemed like he was also affirming like there are propositions that are true in the world without minds.
I have a feeling if you wrote these things out, they wouldn't be as clear cut as you think.
No, I actually think that if you roll them out, they would be contradictory. Because every time he's like speaking out both sides of his mouth. I don't think he's doing it on purpose, but he keeps jumping back and forth from truth bearers to being what truth is. to the fact of the matter being what truth is.
Exactly. He's equivocating on truth.
No, no. The
Well,
facts of the
Floyd, I
matter
understand
aren't
you don't
true.
mean to do it, but you certain. I don't know you don't mean to do it, Floyd, but you certainly, the things that you've been saying, you've affirmed both multiple times.
I don't think so. I've said multiple times that the facts of the matter are the truth makers, and those are what makes a proposition true. The truth makers are not true themselves, right? Only the proposition,
Yeah, we
Yeah,
know
but
the
you
that.
think truth, but
senses,
you think
the
truth,
beliefs,
you think truth is the propositions, right, or the truth bearers,
right? The
right?
senses,
But
statements,
there
and
are
beliefs that
no, and there are no
express,
truth bearers. There are no truth bearers in some possible worlds, right?
right? They express a proposition
Right. So there's no truth in some possible worlds, right?
within the possible worlds. Yes.
In the world, there's no truth in that world, right? So there are some, there are no necessary truths that are in every world, right? There's
There'd be
no
no,
necessary truth that is true in every world.
yeah. There, there's a relationship between the truth bearer and the truth maker, right? If there are no truth bearers in those
Uh,
possible worlds, then there's no relationship, right?
Um, do you think that truth has an
I don't.
ontology?
Yeah, I think Floyd clearly does.
I'm not sure that Floyd does.
Yeah.
He does. He's saying that the truth bearer is the proposition, and he believes it exists.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but
the
like I
proper
keep going around. I'm going to go back to the gravity thing. How can it not be true that every world has gravity?
This guy is
You
too
don't
stupid.
Because
understand.
there's
Oh my,
Dude,
don't
you're
don't
not really
just don't.
grasping this.
No,
I
no.
think
You're. Can
Doc,
you tell me that
there's
there's
a
a world
lot of
without gravity?
there's a lot of
Is
like,
there a world without
look,
gravity
man,
in your
you want
multiple
to talk
worldview?
like two plus
I,
two,
I,
and they're talking like, calculus.
Okay,
I guess there's
well,
equivocation going on between like a sentence, or I guess a sentence or statement, right? And what the sentence, statement, or belief expresses, and what they express is the proposition, right? And the proposition is what's true or false. I guess maybe the mistake I'm making is that I'm saying the proposition is the truth bearer when I should be saying the sentence, statement, or belief about that express the proposition is the truth bearer.
Yeah,
Maybe
but
that's
all
a
of that
mistake
would
I'm
still be
making.
dependent upon a mind, under your view, right?
Right. Yeah. The sentences, statements, and beliefs are dependent on a mind.
Yeah, so it wouldn't really change anything
Well,
in
yeah.
terms of the argument.
Well, again, what's true is the proposition in which the statement, sentence, belief expresses. Right.
There is a way to rectify it.
Now,
I mean,
now,
if you
does the belief have the same ontology as the proposition?
no,
The proposition have any ontology at all? Like the number three. If I say like 1 + 2 = 3, does number three actually exist? Does that have any ontology?
I don't know. This is
I
your
don't
view.
think so.
That's your view, dude. You have to tell us. I mean,
Well, no, I would say no.
But it seems like
so
you kind of want to affirm like there are conceptual entities that possible worlds are like gibberish without saying like they're necessary. And that's where like the necessity comes out of, is saying like they're conceptual entities that are like needed for there to be like understandability.
Understandability, again, a mind is required to understand have
You're
understandability.
right. Well, mind
Right?
is like the obvious part, but like to say a necessary like truth, necessary proposition, without that, in every world where we conceptualize, the world would be gibberish. That's probably closer
The
to what
world
I
would
think you're
be
trying to
the
say.
world would be gibberish. I'm not.
Like, do you think you could
I mean, you can have
conceptualize
an
a world
ordered
with?
world.
Uh,
You can have an ordered world that doesn't make minds, or imagine like a possible world where there's like one rock, right? There's nothing gibberish about
yeah, but that's
that,
not a
right?
necessary truth. We're talking
A
about.
carbon sphere.
Do you think you could make sense of a world where there are contradictions being true?
No, I don't think
Right,
so.
and that's why people might say that they're necessary. Because, like, in your view, you might say, in order to conceptualize these hypothetical worlds, we need to talk about them in terms of like necessity, because we couldn't conceptualize these worlds without them.
Right. Yeah.
Now that's a
But
better way of
again,
saying it, but like you,
we're thinking, but again, we're thinking about that world. We're not within. We're not within that world.
well, see, some people
We're just
you can
we're
talk
just
about.
conceptualizing and comprehending a world, whether that world actually exists or not. We're just talking about a possible world, right?
Well, there's going to be a distinction between things of the world and things in the world. You'd be stuck to talking about things of the world.
Right. And the only way to talk of a world, of a possible world, is within a world that has minds.
Yeah, that's trivially true, though.
Right. Yeah. I'm not saying anything controversial here.
Yeah, some people just find it not intuitive to say that in a world where there aren't minds, like if a proposition like washed up on shore and you could now obviously like there's kind of background information about like semantics and stuff here, but it would still be true that like bachelors are married men in that world. And you'd have to deny that. But like I'm just saying that it's not intuitive, it's not like a contradiction or anything.
I just can't imagine. I just don't imagine like propositions floating around in ether somewhere, being true.
No, you imagine them in minds.
Right.
Right. Anyway, Floyd, I think
But
we.
but 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 the truth value of those propositions are still the case, regardless if there's a mind to apprehend them. But of course, the proposition, so to speak, has no, is the content of those belief statements and sentences.
Yeah, there needs to be a state of affairs for a mind to have a proposition for something that is true.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, there's
not
probably got to
being
be a state of
disputed.
affairs for there to be a
Well, right.
mind.
Again, that would be the truth maker.
Yeah, we're talking about the truth bearer,
Yeah, I
the
understand. I
truth
understand.
maker.
Which would be the sentences that express a proposition.
And these sentences are descriptive, not prescriptive, right?
Right. Yes.
I mean, so bottom line, Floyd, you're saying that truth cannot exist without a mind, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, he's been clear on that, although other times it seems contradictory. But that's why we're saying in worlds in which minds don't exist, there's no truth in that world.
Well, let me see. I would say sentences that express a true proposition cannot exist without a mind. So I guess the question is, okay, well, if there's no mind, there's no sentence, right? So, but you have a proposition
Correct. It's
that's
still the
still
same issue.
that's still true or not. So I guess we're talking about the ontology of the proposition, which is the content of the statement's belief or sentence that the mind holds.
Yeah, but you're saying that they
That's
don't
why I'm a pluralist,
exist.
man.
You're saying that they don't exist in those
Yeah, I
worlds
don't
where
think a
there's no minds.
proposition has any
It's
ontology.
weird to say like
Well,
mathematical
then,
truths.
but hold on a second. If you're saying that propositions don't have any ontology, then what have you been saying all this time? I don't understand.
Well, what exactly is the ontology?
Well, you were saying that they're grounded in minds.
Well, it's the sentences that express the proposition it requires a mind.
Okay, let's go back to square one. What, on your view, what is the truth bearer?
The sentences,
Does
statements,
it
and
exist?
beliefs, yeah, they exist within minds.
Okay, so whether you want to call that a proposition or a sentence or belief structure, it's still going to
Again,
be the same
yeah,
issue, right? Because it's still all those are still on your view are going to be dependent upon a mind. So we just swap out the word proposition for sentence, and you've got the same issue.
Well, I think we can kind of separate the proposition, the proposition from the sentence that expresses the proposition, right? You think we can
Yeah,
do
but
that?
you already said that what bears the truth is the sentence. So why are we concerned with the proposition if it's not the
Well, no,
truth
no,
bearer?
no, 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 no. The what bears the truth value is the proposition, right?
Does the proposition exist?
As a sentence, statement, or belief.
Is it identical to it?
No, expresses it.
So the sentence expresses the proposition, and the proposition
Right.
is what bears the truth, correct?
So yeah. So think of think of a sentence like as a thought or a belief. You have a belief, right? Like I say, the cat is on the mat. Okay, that's a belief. That's a sentence. That's a thought. That's a thought in my head, right?
Yeah.
And the content of that thought is that the cat is on the mat, which has a truth value, right? So either the cat's on the mat or he's not. So that truth value is either true or false. It doesn't matter, which one it is. We're just talking about, the proposition itself, not whether if it actually corresponds with reality. So again, and if there's no minds, there'd be no sentences, right? There'd be no thought, right? That thought wouldn't exist. So I guess the question is now, what does it mean to say, well, actually, I won't say cat. Let's say a rock is on the mat. Well, okay, a mat is something that a mind would make. So let's get rid of that. Let's go back to the rock is on the uh, planet.
Earth?
Yeah, it's on the Earth before there are any minds on the Earth. So we eliminated all minds. So again, there are no sentences because there are no minds, right? So I guess the question is, does that proposition still exist? If we ask, well, is that yeah, if it is the actual state of affairs that the rock is on the Earth? If you ask, well, is that proposition true? Well, obviously the answer to that is yes, right?
And that's
There's
even
no
without a
sentences.
mind, right?
There's no thoughts to hold that proposition. But
Yeah.
that doesn't change the fact of whether or not the proposition is true or not,
So
right?
the proposition is true, and that's what bears the truth, right? And that
No, no,
exists
no,
even
no, no.
without
The
mind.
sentences, the thought bears the proposition.
Okay, I'm not really understanding you. So
Well,
is
you
the
have the sentence.
proposition what is true?
You have the sentence, and you have the content of the sentence, right? Which is a proposition,
Yeah.
right? So if we say the sentence bears the truth, like holding the truth, right? See, do you see what I see?
Do you think
Kind of
propositions
like,
are ground in
kind of like,
minds?
like a crib holding a baby, right?
Yeah, but the question, Floyd, is do you think
So
propositions are
so
ground in minds?
the thought has the content, and the content is what's true or false, right? But the sentence, the thought is bearing that content.
Yeah. So are propositions ground in minds?
The sentences are.
What about the propositions?
I think the proposition can only be expressed with a sentence, statement, or belief.
Yeah, so do propositions exist apart from sentences?
They're just a representation that comes from the truth maker. So I guess the answer would be no.
Yeah, and just before you were saying that the proposition would exist. Now you're saying it wouldn't exist.
Again, I think we're think we're,
Yeah,
I think
I
it's
think
category error to say it actually exists. I don't think the truth exists. I think the truth abides. I think that's the difference. The truth
what's the
does not
difference?
exist. It abides.
What's the difference?
Well, it doesn't have any actual existence. No real
That's
ontology.
fine. I mean, think about like your definition. Like, truth is what corresponds to reality. So if there's like some relation between the proposition and reality, then it's true. Or, like if they represent like what the like there's the corresponding relation.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
he's saying that the proposition doesn't exist, Albina.
Right. So there wouldn't be a relation.
Yeah, but then I'm saying then correspondence theory and the way he's expressing it is out the window. It's a different theory now.
yeah. I see you're confusing abstractions with concrete objects. I think that's the problem. You're imagining that truth is some concrete entity. It's not.
No, I'm not. I'm not at all. I'm not imagining
Well, I
anything.
don't
I'm
think.
just working with your view.
Well, again, I don't think truths exist. Does that mean there are no truths? Like, did I contradict myself
Um,
if I say truths don't exist? Would like Frank Turek then say, "Is that true?"
well, I'm not trying to do that at all.
Well,
Truth is again,
do truths exist without context?
truths do not exist. So you're saying,
But
so yeah. So if you say, okay, well, if there's a possible world with no minds, then you're saying there's no necessary truths. And again, I've been arguing all along that no, that's not the case. Why? Because truths do not exist. Truth abides. They hold. Truth is not. Truth
What does
is
that mean?
again.
What is
Truth
it
is
holding?
it's a relationship. It's not an object.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's
That's
where
fine.
I think
So
that's
it's
the
Even in
confusion
that case, though, you're
that's
still
going
gonna have
is
the
on.
it
same issue.
is it a real relation?
As opposed to what a false relation? I don't know what you
Yeah,
mean by real relation.
something that's just virtual.
What again? It's representation, right? You say when you say real, right? When we're talking about reality, and what's reality? The actual state of affairs. So that, to say reality is virtual, that wouldn't make sense, right? So
Yeah,
again,
I
No,
would
I'm
bite
not
the
talking about
I think
reality. I'm
I think
talking
the
about the
confusion
relation
is you're
itself.
imagining truth to be some sort of object that
I would
actually exists,
I would
and
bite the
I don't
bullet.
think truth exists. I think
I
truth.
would bite the bullet and say that relations are real. I would bite the bullet on that.
Well, yeah.
Relationships are real. They're not virtual. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I think you want to,
Well, yeah,
especially
I don't know what
when you're
I don't
using
know what yeah I don't know
correspondence.
what it would mean to say relationships are virtual. I'm not sure what that even means.
Yeah, but then in that case, it's something that's real, right?
And then it exists. That's just like just
And
anyone.
then it exists. It just goes back to
Yeah,
the same
but
thing
not
as before.
concrete. Not concrete.
Right? They're not
Yeah, that's
concrete.
fine. They don't cause it. That's fine.
It's,
Oh, okay,
yeah,
so we're
we're
good.
not disputing that, but
I
they
think we're
still
good
exist.
here. We're good.
No, they
I
don't
think there's
exist.
lots of
Again, they
other
abide. They
weird
hold.
entailments about your view, like about scientific realism and mathematical entities, about like because of this kind of view of truth. I don't know how you'd make sense of like mathematical truths prior to like people, and then also like how that affects like scientific realism,
What?
given the indispensability argument about math. I think those are all going to be like these things that we could question.
Yeah, why don't
Okay,
we give
I think
Floyd a
you're trying to
break and
argue for
talk
some
about it
sort
Let's
another
of like
time?
reject
divine exceptionalism
indispensability.
or some sort of Platonism.
No, that's fine. I'm not gonna
I'm
like press you on those. Those will just be like further questions.
yeah.
What's the
It's a
question
good
to begin
it's a
with?
good
What's the
discussion though.
problem with
It's a good
why is
discussion.
Floyd's view weird? I
I
don't get
enjoy
it.
the discussion.
How do
Albedo,
It's not
is there a
necessarily
contradiction in
Floyd's.
Floyd's view, or is it just that it's like
Yeah,
weird by some standard?
well initially
there was a contradiction in
Oh,
Floyd's view.
initially
So
there
that,
was, but there isn't now.
yeah, because he changed his
I,
view.
I
well,
don't think so, because I think you think it's a contradiction because you think, like, again, that truth exists somehow
yeah, but you already
Yeah, that's
as an
fair.
agreed that it's
object, as some sort of.
you already agreed it's a real relation which exists, right? So now you're back to saying it
It's
doesn't exist, but it's a real relation.
well, again, I think you're equivocating to the word exists. It is a relationship, yeah. Truth abides,
That just means
but
it
does truth
exists.
exist? No, I don't
Truth,
think
Wait, if
so.
truth is the relation and the relation is real, how does it not
that's
exist?
just what it means to be. Like
Yeah,
real and existence are synonyms.
yeah.
Yeah, Floyd, this is the
It doesn't
problem you're
exist.
running into.
It doesn't exist as an object.
Yeah, we agree. They're conceptual entities. It's fine. They still like have like something that's like true, or like there's something about it that makes it like work together. That's like what a relation is.
Floyd, put it this way: doesn't exist as an abstract object doesn't mean doesn't exist implicator. It sounds like you're confusing the two.
What? Yeah, but that's just his view. He doesn't believe
It-
abstract objects exist. So he says something is abstract, it
No,
doesn't
that's not
exist.
his view.
Yes, it
That's not his
is.
No,
view, Sean.
no, that's not it. Well,
Sean,
Floyd, you don't
you're
believe
literally coming
Floyd, do you
in
believe
after
abstract objects
an
exist? Do you
hour
believe the number
conversation
three
and trying to
exists
tell us
outside
what
of the
Floyd's
mind?
view
no,
is.
No,
right? No, I
This is
no,
don't believe
right?
the
ridiculous,
number
dude.
three exists.
Right.
Yeah, I
Thank
don't
you.
believe the number three
And
we
you don't
exists.
never,
believe
we never,
propositions are abstract objects either, right?
we never pressed him on
Right?
that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
nominalist. Yeah,
You believe they, maybe you think they do, but you don't believe that abstract objects exist, right? Have a real existence, right?
right.
Thank you.
Okay, great. You made a point that nobody was
Yeah,
trying to press him on at all at any point.
Yeah, because that's crucial
yeah.
to what you're saying is real and what
Sean to the
exists.
rescue.
No.
Sean to the rescue.
Yes. What do you
How?
mean?
Look, something can exist and it can be concrete or abstract. That's fine.
Not according to Floyd. So you're talking past each other.
Wait.
Not defining
What
your.
does he
You're not.
deny of
You're
that?
not defining in your
What does
terms.
he deny of what
You're
I just
jumping
said?
right into the deep end and trying to like point out some or make his view untenable or something.
What is it? Floyd, what part of what I said do you deny?
Floyd doesn't think abstract objects exist.
They exist
Why don't you
conceptually,
allow
right?
Floyd to speak for himself?
That's
How about
fine.
that?
They're talking about different things.
All right, you can just talk with
Well,
Floyd then.
well, actually, I need to get going now. I have to eat
You
lunch,
make
but I'll
that
be back
distinction
later.
when you talk.
Continue.
Take care, Floyd.
All right, Floyd, take
Right,
care.
take care. Later.